All right, Nick, let's talk about some Alabama Crimson Tide football. Going into the season, there's a lot to like about Alabama, but there's some questions that need to be answered, and we are at the time of the year where those questions start to get resolved, Nick. And I think we've got a really exciting story today to talk about some things to look forward to in spring ball.
Yeah, Miles, I think you really found a very interesting report that I think Crimson Tide fans will love. But while we're talking about Crimson Tide football, Alabama fans, we want to hear from you, as we always like to, in the comment section below. As spring ball is upon us, you're seeing a lot of new Alabama players get into the fold, whether they're exciting young recruits, guys in the transfer portal, or guys who are just buried on the depth chart looking to get their first live reps in the two deep. Give us one guy, one Alabama player that you're really looking forward to seeing spring ball take the next step. Whether it's a new recruit, a transfer, or a guy who hasn't played a whole lot, a guy you're really expecting and hoping he can take steps and become a big time player for the Crimson Tide come fall of 2023. But all right, Miles, what you got? What's going on out of Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, Nick. So, one thing that we can notably say about Alabama that is surprising, and this is how you know how good Alabama is, they did miss the college football playoff last year. They were very close to getting in there, but there seemed to be something missing in this team. And I truly believe, Nick, it was the lack of a true number one target at wide receiver last year. I think they could have used it, but there's some interesting news coming into camp, Nick, that there's going to be kind of a wide receiver battle. There's a lot of options in this receiver room, and I'll get into here in just a second. But someone needs to come out and cement themselves as the true number one guy. Alabama has always been a hotbed for receiver talent over the last 10 years. They've had a lot of great receivers. But some of these guys coming back this year, Nick, really need to cement themselves. And there's a lot of guys coming back. The top two were targets from last season, Ja'Corey Brooks, Jermaine Burton. They're back. Then you got some guys who are second-year guys who know the system, have gotten playing time. Got Isaiah Bond, Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice. Those are very interesting. Some of them had flashes throughout the season. But, nonetheless, those guys are on the table here. You never know who's going to break out Alabama. And then you got some incoming guys like the top 50 recruit in Jalen Hale. And then get JUCO transfer Malik Benson. There's a ton of bodies in this receiving room, and there's a ton of options. But somebody has to come out and be the guy, Nick. So I am interested this offseason, this spring ball period, to see who is going to come out and be the number one guy. What do you think so far about Alabama in this incoming wide receiver battle?
Yeah, it's definitely their biggest weakness, right? I mean, you can find little things to nitpick at other parts of the roster, but the fact of the matter is, for the better part of a decade, it felt like the Alabama basically were just feeling NFL first-round draft picks at wide receiver, and that's why you had guys, of course, Jalen Hurts, Tua, Mac Jones, putting up ungodly numbers. I remember it wasn't that long ago that Alabama, with the likes of Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry, were kind of more ground and pound, much more balanced team. Obviously, they had guys like Julio Jones and Amari Cooper that were great receivers, but they weren't really like a spread them out, just like completely blow you out of the water offensively, throwing the ball down the field. But for a period there with Tua and Mac Jones, they actually were that, and they won a national title doing that with Mac Jones. They really have struggled, I think, the last couple of years with the receiving game. And that's why I think going into spring ball, it is incredibly important for the Crimson Tide to figure out who their number one is, but frankly, what every receiver's role is going to be in this offense. Because Alabama, I think, is when they become unstoppable, when they become the clear number one team in college football again, is when they have a bunch of receivers that can do a bunch of different things that could come at you in waves. Because that's how Alabama becomes so tough, because they can always run the ball. They're always going to be great on defense. They're always going to do smart things on special teams. They're usually going to have a pretty solid offensive line. But what really pushes them over the top is when they can just have the ability to score on you in bunches with a bunch of big play receivers, whether it's winning 50-50 balls, catching runs, whatever it may be, having a bunch of different big play guys that just break down and destroy a defense. And that's what Alabama, I think, missed a lot last season. And if they can figure it out going through spring ball, who those top guys are going to be for the fall of 2023, they can go back to beating Georgia again and actually winning national titles again. Because right now, although, listen, Alabama's season last year for Crimson Tide fans, it was a disappointment, even though it would be a better season for 99% of programs in the NFL, in college football, I should say. It felt like a big disappointment. One way to reverse that trend is to figure out who your big play guys are going to be, and they need to figure it out very quickly, because right now, obviously, you got a new starting quarterback coming into the fold. That's a question mark as well, so you need to think about that relationship and who's going to be those guys. So that's why it's such a huge priority for Saban and company to figure it out. And I think Tommy Rees, that to me, obviously he's there to help with the quarterback. That to me is the biggest question mark that he has to answer, how he's going to use these receivers.
Yeah, Nick. And if you had to ask me, I'm going to give my 2 cents here. I think Ja'Cory Brooks is probably overall, he's one of the leading receivers from last season. He showed a lot of flashes. I think he has the potential to come out and be a superstar on this team. He had a lot of moments like that last year, but you need to string together moments to put together a consistent season. And Brooks has all the physical tools. He's a big body receiver. He's 6'3", about 190. He's got all the talent in the world coming from IMG Academy, one of the best high schools in the country. I think he has the potential to come out and be that guy. So keeping our eyes on that. I think we need to look at this wide receiver room very closely coming through spring ball. Mainly keep our eyes on Brooks and some of the other guys and see how this wide receiver room fleshes itself out.